Stand in the light, letting it ride in. Strive for what's right, some bright in the darkness. I treasure your company as you stand in the light with me. Standing in the light.
Hi there, I'm Laura Burton, and you are here with me, Standing in the Light. This is the podcast where we explore what it truly means to live awake, aligned, and fully present in your life, choosing courage over fear and growth over comfort. There are two ideas I come back to often. The light you're searching for has always been the light you carry. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. Standing in the light means many things. It means seeking knowledge and being open to new ideas. It means evolving when life invites you to grow. It means doing the right thing, especially when it's hard. It means trusting your inner wisdom, taking ownership of your path, and choosing presence in the middle of uncertainty. It also means shining a light on the greatness in others, seeing it, speaking it, and calling it forward. Each week, we step into conversations about spiritual growth, mindfulness, universal consciousness, relationships, purpose, personal transformation, and practical tools that help us live our best possible lives. We explore ancient wisdom and modern insight. We talk about breakthroughs and setbacks. And we remind each other that awakening is about awareness. Whether you're navigating change, seeking deeper connection, or wanting to live more intentionally, you belong here. New episodes of Standing in the Light drop every Thursday. Join us as we continue standing, evolving, and shining together in the light. Welcome back to Standing in the Light. I'm so glad you're here. Today's conversation is one that sits right at the intersection of imagination, science, and something a little more cosmic. Something we all feel, even if we don't always have the language for it. I'm joined by Brownell Landrum, a storyteller, speaker, inventor, and true change catalyst, whose work is all about opening hearts and minds toward more peaceful, positive, and purposeful progress. Brownell is the author of The Art and Science of Wishing and the creator of the Cosmic Wish Experiment, where she explores the idea that wishing isn't just something we do as children, but something that might actually connect us more deeply to ourselves, to each other, and to the universe itself. Her work spans across genres and mediums, fiction and nonfiction, children's books, screenplays, and even music, all rooted in a single powerful idea. Lose yourself in the fiction and find yourself in the truth. From reincarnation stories and love letters to the universe, to exploring life's hardest questions, like why difficult things happen and how we transform them, Brownell's work lives at the intersection of curiosity, mysticism, humor, and the very real human experience of being here. She is also the creator of the Hero's Playbook, the executive producer of the Life is a Trip Reincarnation Stories podcast, and an explorer of what she calls the metaphysical mysteries that shape our lives in ways that we're only beginning to understand. What I love about Brownell's work is that it doesn't ask you to choose between science and wonder. It invites you to hold both. So today, we're going to explore what it really means to wish. What happens when intention meets collective energy? And how we might begin to see our lives and our role in them a little differently. Well, hello, Brownell. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining me on Standing in the Light.
I am so excited to be here. So I'm going to have fun. We're going to have fun today.
Absolutely. And one of the first things that I noticed about your website is a tab called Fun. And I love that. It mentions the art and science of wishing.
Yes.
And I mean, we've all been wishing every year, right? For our birthdays. And I appreciate this concept. So tell me about how this all came into a scientific realm for you.
Yeah, because I make it really clear. So if anybody's listening and you're into science, yeah, I'm a storyteller, not a scientist. And I was actually writing a semi-autobiographical novel because I write kind of metaphysical novels and stuff like that. And I was writing one that's kind of this magical realism about this place, I call upstairs, where wish fairies are gathering all this kind of magical little world. And when you're writing a book like that, you have to kind of decide, well, what is a wish and how is a wish different from a prayer or a goal? All of these kinds of things that you
Sure.
have to determine. So I was in that mindset. And then one night, sometimes when I can't sleep, I listen to science lectures.
That'll help, huh?
I was like, but this time, instead of putting me to sleep, it woke me up literally and
Mm.
figuratively. So it was so amazing to start looking at these sciences. So I'm listening, and I'm actually listening to a science lecture on neuroplasticity. And I was like, is there science in wishing? And that just like, I'd like to talk about it like a scientific whack-a-mole, because science just kept popping up all over the place. And then that led me to researching over 70 different scientists and looking at all different kinds of sciences. And, one of the most profound things that I learned is every time you make a wish, you engage over a dozen sciences.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's so much fun because wishing is by nature fun, right? I mean,
For sure.
and it's something we do have good memories of, and everybody does it all over the world since the beginning of time. I mean, this is something universal that I just don't think enough people have really looked at, and so I
Yeah.
started digging into it.
I love that. I love that you found even more treasure in the concept of the treasure of a wish. When you think about wishing on birthday cake, candles, and throwing a little coin in a fountain for a wish, blowing on a dandelion, all the elements that everybody on the planet, like you said, has had an opportunity to share a wish and put it out there. So, science, no doubt, has something to do with that concept of the thought process that it takes and the emotions that are associated with it because you're not feeling all negative and yucky when you're wishing. It's a very positive, light feeling. Can you tell me a little bit about those 20 science pieces that you, or some of the 20? And 20 is kind of a lot. I can't even
Yeah,
believe that there's that many associated. But
yeah,
what did you discover?
yeah. A lot of them. For example, yeah, anthropology is one of them, and you're mentioning rituals, right? And like collective wishing rituals have been a part of humanity since the beginning of time. And that's one of the kind of the messages is I think we need to do it more together, not just on our own, but together. But the ritual is important, right? Because it's part of who we are. And so if we can come up with a ritual, then that's actually activating anthropology, right? If we can wish together, that's sociology. So I always say one of the first things, if anybody's listening, what do you wish for? If you were making a wish right now, what would you wish for? And then we can kind of show you some sciences. And the first one would be look at what kind of ritual. Maybe it's a time on the clock. Some people see a particular time on a clock, and that's what triggers them to make their wish. It could be, like we said, fountains, birthdays. Let's try to get at one that something that you do every day, because that's another science. And that's neuroplasticity. If you repeat something every day, then your brain is going to be looking for the solutions for that. And so, I mean, I could just go on and on. There's so many different sciences, but the next one, and then I'll let you kind of weigh in,
Yeah,
is because
sure.
I think you've probably had this experience, is something called the reticular activating system. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So tell me, I mean, so for listeners, if you don't know what that is basically there's a part of your brain that turns on that helps you. It's like a missile that's going to find that solution. So it can imagine if somebody said, look for yellow cars, all of a sudden you're going to see yellow cars everywhere, and before you weren't noticing yellow cars. And so if you're wishing for something every day, your reticular activating system is going to be looking for that thing you're wishing for, especially when you apply what I call the 3 Ps, that the wish needs to be peaceful, positive, and purposeful. So if your wish is positive, if your wish isn't positive, like I wish this would stop, that's not going to, the reticular activating system isn't going to be your friend there. But if you say, like I've got a children's book, and the before wish is, it's kind of a preteen girl, and she's got her little sister, and her little sister's trying to get her attention. And the preteen girl's got a stack of books and, computer on her desk. And she's like, I wish my little sister would leave me alone. I'm too busy. And then she reframes her wish to make it positive, and she changes it to, I wish I had more time for my sister. And then she's going to be looking for ways to find time with her sister, right? That's a whole different way of framing the wish. So tell me what your thoughts are on all of that.
Yeah, I understand that. It took a little while to realize what it was when it happens, and to know that there is science behind it. Some people might consider it like a synchronicity, coincidences, things like that. But that too has a piece of what you put out, you get back kind of thing.
Right.
So I can attest to the experience that I've had, in the sense that somebody kind of road raged at me, and I was very emotional surrounding that, right? Because it was kind of a, woof, I can't believe that just happened. And I thought about it a lot.
Right.
Well, within that like month after, I had noticed so much road rage. So I started to check myself, like, am I driving horribly? Am I doing really bad? I'm not, but I'm really noticing all of these angry people. And it kind of works that way too. Like, you can call the negative to you as well. So having that reframed, I had to reframe my thought patterns, because the minute that I was just like, I can't believe there's another one, and I would talk about it and give attention to it, guess what? The next day, another one. And I was like, what is this cruel joke that's happening to me? This is the most that this has ever happened. And then I had like that aha moment, and I was like, I'm doing this to myself. Like, it's not because I'm driving poorly. I'm noticing it so often because I'm basically saying, find me more bad drivers, find me more opportunities where people are angry driving. And it was like, here's another one. So I had to say, I no longer want to see any more bad drivers. Help me just be very calm, and help me to notice, be generous. Help me to notice when people are like waving and, saying thank you when you do kindness to them. And I had to have it to switch. So that concept of really reframing, I think, is one of the most important pieces of all of this, is that positive piece.
Yes.
Because I have proven that you can definitely call in the dark, the negative, without intention. I didn't mean for that to happen, but that's definitely what was happening.
That's right. And that's why the neuroplasticity says you'd have to repeat it, so that you're and reframe it as, I'm going to have a lovely drive to work today, and everybody's going to be peaceful, positive, and purposeful that I encounter, something like that. And so when you reframe it and you do it every day, then your brain is looking for that, and then it becomes a part of who you are. So it's important to repeat it, so that your brain and what you were doing is accidentally looking for the other.
Yes.
And one of the other things I talk about, you're probably already really familiar with, is like the David Hawkins work about power versus force.
Yeah, tell us more about that though, because it is an important lesson.
Because it ties into exactly what you're saying too, right? Is that that basically, and some people call this pseudoscience, and that's fine. Like, if there's other scientific definitions of what I'm talking about, but I like his framework.
Sure.
But basically, he talks about energy and kind of awareness and energy being at different scales. So the lower level energy scales, and then all the way up to which are like hatred and despair and anger and things like that, all the way up to the highest, which is joy and love and peace and those things. And so the lower levels are what they call force energy. So you're forcing energy, and then the higher ones are power. And I think one of the things we're seeing happening in the world is we're seeing a lot, especially media. So watch your media, because if your media is trying to drive you down into despair and anger, that becomes that own cycle of then you're looking for despair and anger, and you're looking for other people who are also in despair and anger. And then you've got your tribe of all these people in despair and anger. And one of the reasons why I wrote the book, and I'm also kind of working on this collective wishing thing, is to if we move up to the higher realms, then we're not at that energy level anymore, and then we have more power. So instead of protesting against something, we need to be rallying for something. We need to have something positive that we're looking forward to, that we can take action on, because that's where our brains want to go. And so it's fun. It's like when I start asking and started trying to analyze and do the research on, like, well, which science is this? Like, well, it could be biology because it affects us here, and it could be, neurology or neuroscience, and it affects us here. It could be, also the thing I love about wishes is that, goals are in your control and prayers are for things out of your control, but wishes cover kind of both grounds. And when we realize, and I can't wait to hear you weigh in on this, is I call it cosmic collaboration, just to use a term, when there's some sort of force outside of you that's helping. So when you're saying, okay, am I being guided? If you're being guided to see people in road rage because your calling in life is to help people with road rage, then it's not necessarily a bad thing. But if it's bringing your energy down and that's not your jam, we can reframe it. But when we start looking at that, and I'm going to let you weigh in, and then I'll tell you something, the blue balloon, because I can't wait to hear what you think about the blue balloon phenomena.
Well, Brownell, thank you I'm just so touched that you said what you said about what we rally for instead of fighting against, because I don't think a lot of people their minds are shifting in that direction. But it's very easy to sit back for a second, and if you have a cause that you're passionate about, and you don't like how something is going, what's the positive of that? What do you actually want to see? And then let's talk about putting that out there. How do we make that come to life? Because I think that if everybody really took the time to just pause before acting or saying or speaking, and just had a thought and push themselves to stretch their imagination to include how good can it get? Like, what could it be? How wonderful could it be? And how could I play a role in that? Even just shifting their thought there in that moment, it's just shifted everything. I mean, it really has. It's just invited everything energetically, the process of thinking and whatever chemical reaction happens from our brain to the atmosphere, the energetic surroundings, it shifts it all. And then imagine if they step into a position where they're, instead of rallying against something and everything is in a negative situation, that it's showing everything that's positive. And look at all this wonder that this society is doing. Look at my neighbors. Look at the love that's here. Look at how we are together. How beautiful it really would be. And it's something that, man, how do we get that established and started and to ripple everywhere? That's what I'd like to do.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to do, honestly.
Yes.
And one of the kind of things I like to say is, like, well, Joan of Arc had a vision, Gandhi had a mantra, and Martin Luther King had a dream. And I think, the Martin Luther King speech, I mean, he painted a picture we all saw, and we were like, oh, got it. We're, the hundreds of thousands of people are there hearing this. And that's an unstoppable force, right? I mean, or power, I should say, if I'm using David Hawkins' language. And so, that's why I started something called the Cosmic Wish Experiment, which is just kind of getting off the ground. And I'm going to be doing something else with Cosmic Wishes and helping people with their wishes so that they can start finding people to wish together, because we need to be wishing together. And so, there can be all different kinds of wishes that people can be wishing for. They can be wishes for world peace. They can be wishes for a more sustainable, planet, or somebody else wants to do a wish circle for the world a better place for animals, right? And the wishes, the requirement is the wishes have to be peaceful, positive, and purposeful. And there's just fun science in that, right? The more and I don't always remember the formulas, like this is where the real scientists and mathematicians could probably come in and say, this is the number. And I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's not just like if you and I were wishing together, it's not just 1 + 1. There's a multiplier effect that's proven by research, right? So it's not just us saying, oh, there's a multiplier effect. That's good. There's actually 2 people is like, I think 3 people is 4.2 or whatever the numbers are, right?
Some
that they
statistics,
multiply. And there's also something called mirror neurons. So if I'm telling you a story and I'm painting this picture and I'm Martin Luther King talking about a dream, all of a sudden all these people, their mirror neurons in their brain are connecting on that level, and they're aligned. They're there. Their reticular activating systems are going to be looking for ways to do that together. And they're going to be looking for people who have a solution to whatever problem they're working on. So, I mean, that's my wish, right? Is to try to bring back this power of wishing together. And the thing I love about wishing and wishes is just such a beautiful word, just wish is this, just like this release and this energy, that is, it doesn't have, the only, like I was gonna say, it doesn't have a negative connotation. The only thing people might think, oh, well, that's silly what kids do. But it's like, yeah, but look how beautifully kids do it and how positive it is in that regard. And then when we look at the science, you've got, one of the things I also love about it is you can be hardcore religion, and guess what? Any religion, guess what? You can align with this, right? There's no religion that it's against. And then if you say, I'm not into religion, I'm into spirituality, there's a whole nother crowd. And then if some people say, I'm not into either one of those, but the science makes sense, then we can maybe unify. And that's one of my...
It is a one size fits all. It's a one word fits all, one practice fits all. And you're right. It takes down any real barriers that exist, because everybody can admit that they have put a wish into the world at one stage or another in their lifetime.
Right.
And therefore, embrace even that childlike wonder for a moment, because honestly, science will tell you that the very persons we were up until like the age 7 was like our innate, our magic. And then we start to have the conditioning of society kind of take over, and our magic is still there, but it starts to become a little bit depleted just by all the things that, the work, the school, the whatever construct society is applying. So it's really important that we do kind of circle back to our initial being, which is that childlike, able to dream, able to wonder, our imagination, because that's how we were designed that way. We were designed to be free and in that creative sense. So I really love that the wish really does bring us to that full circle. So tell us about the blue balloon. I want to circle back to that for a second.
It's a concept that I kind of came up with, and I just think it's really fun to talk about, and it kind of relates to what you were just saying too, is so imagine you're driving home from work and you have this vision of a blue balloon in your driveway, like just obscure thing out of the blue, pun intended. And you drive home and there's a blue balloon in your driveway. There are probably a dozen different explanations of how that balloon got there, or how that whole phenomena happened. So I just thought you'd have fun with looking, kind of guessing, what do you think some of those explanations are?
Well, there's that whole concept of manifesting.
Right.
If you put something out there and you have sensory details surrounding it, you're really thinking about the color blue, you're really imagining it kind of floating in the air, so you really visualize it. Perhaps you can even imagine what it sounds like if you touched it, that's kind of squeaky sound. Maybe you can even think about the time that you blew a balloon up, so you've got the air coming out. But just, the idea of it kind of hovering there, all of those sensory details could make it show up in your life. I mean, sometimes we're powerful beings, and we have the ability to make things happen. And sometimes, coincidences are pretty strong, but really I don't believe that there's any such thing as a coincidence. There's something kind of surrounding it. So I don't know, I'm going to go with the manifestation factor.
Okay, so that's definitely one of them, right? Another one could have been predictive. So you were given a message that there would be a blue balloon, and you were told in advance, look out for it. So it wasn't like you necessarily manifested it, but you were more like precognitive. Hinted. Or, they call it retrocausality in quantum physics, if you're into that stuff, right? That there's like some what caused what at what point, and then what triggered that. So that's another possible, right? Another possible is it was there, but your conscious mind didn't see it, because your conscious mind only registers 50 impressions per second, and your subconscious registers 11 million, I think is the number. So it might have been there, but you were zoned out on something else. Your default mode network was running. We got to get in default mode network too. but it was running somewhere else, or your brain was somewhere else, and you didn't notice it, and then you just noticed it. So it was maybe just always there. It could be a message from some other realm, right? It could be, let's say you have a relationship with Blue Balloon with a loved one that's not here anymore. It could be a message from your guides, or, if you're into the spirit stuff, or maybe it's not, it's just non-locality, they would call it in quantum physics. There's some sort of knowledge and intelligence outside of us that they are finding in physics, right? That's saying, okay, I'm giving you attention because I want you to pay attention because I'm going to be showing you signs, right? The signs could be something like a dream. When you look in your dream, I do a lot of dream analysis when I have certain symbols. So I look up, well, what would blue mean? And what does a balloon mean? And is this a message for something telling me about my future? So it's fun to look at those things in so many different ways, because then your mind is just all of a sudden expanded into how do wishes work, right? And that they can be things that we're wishing for, that maybe we're guided to wish for something so that we'll be on the lookout for it because that's part of our path. I mean, there's lots of fun ways.
Yeah, it's really profound. And I love that you use the blue balloon as an opportunity to kind of digest the possibilities.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are very concrete thinking, right? They are on a path and they just can't really see an abstract possibility. Maybe it's just because they've never had these types of kind of open-minded conversations. So if you're listening and that's kind of your usual kind of MO, is you just have this, I don't know, I don't believe any of that. It's kind of woo-woo. It's kind of, funky. I think the best thing that I've always done in that situation is just try to suspend your disbelief, because the reality is we don't really know like how any of it really works. Like, we have these great scientists that are searching through, and logical. It makes a lot of sense, the things that they're coming forth with, and they can prove it, right? We have hypothesis and you have evidence, so you believe the science behind it. But then you start thinking in some of the harder, wrap your head around the quantum level of it, and it gets to where, we're kind of guessing a little bit based on science, but we're kind of checking patterns. So I think it's just really important to suspend your disbelief in all aspects, to know that there's so much about the world, science, life, spirituality, that not one person is ever able to be like, that's it, that's the answer. And it's the ultimate quest to just enjoy the seeking and that aspect of it.
Absolutely. In fact, I have a whole chapter that I'm like talk about fun with skeptics. And it's like, if somebody's listening, they're a skeptic, like, go test it. Like you said, get the hypothesis, go see what works for you, go figure out what are the different potential sciences. I threw out some woo-woo answers, but I also threw out some scientific answers, right? And some exploration, because one of the things that's beautiful about science is it's constantly trying to answer things. It's never, it's like, oh, here's the answer today, but can that be changed tomorrow? Can that be changed the next day? And if you look at some of the practices of like even Einstein, I mean, he used a lot of practices that he might have defined as something that, or we could define as something that ventures into the metaphysical, if you will. But now we know, for example, how he was very much activating the default mode network, which is something a lot of people, don't necessarily know about. Because we think, oh, well, our mind just wandered off. And if your mind wandered off during this, or while we're talking because we said something, you're like, oh, back on the blue balloon, my brain's still there. That's actually default mode network that's also looking for solutions and also finding, and that's your creative source. So, and like Thomas Edison would take a nap with a steel ball in his hand, and then as soon as he kind of nod off, he'd drop it, and that would wake him up, and he'd try to catch that, in between state. So if somebody's a skeptic, try these things out, see how they work for yourself. And then look, say, buy my book, but I mean, you can do your own research on the sciences, and feel free to challenge what I have in the book. I like to look at it from a lot of different perspectives. I always want to hear from scientists and people, and all people from all realms. But I think the more that science can answer these questions that we've used spirituality to explain, or religion even, the more even Max Planck, who's the founder of quantum physics, says, there can be no division between religion and science. And Carl Sagan had something similar to say. I mean, there's a lot of, famous scientists who've said similar things. The more we bring those things together and we realize that we're just using different language to maybe explain the same thing.
I agree. And I do find it so interesting because I even think Albert Einstein also would sit with the spoon and try to just, when he'd fall asleep, he would have the opportunity to try tapping into that particular brainwave at the time.
Yeah, I
I
don't know
think
about
it's,
that, but he said he would not think in words. When ideas came to him, they
yes,
were not in the form of words. Well, this is a different part of your brain working. Yeah, so I mean, writer Aaron Sorkin says when he's in writing mode, he sometimes takes 7 showers a day. Well, what he's doing is he's trying to activate the default mode network.
sure.
And that's one of the things that I'm doing a lot more research on is like, can I do a meditation that gets us in that place? Because guided meditations we're supposed to be listening to. And then if it's something like TM, we're supposed to be releasing all our thoughts and not holding on to thoughts. How do we and then there's the hypnagogic state where we're kind of visualizing that's on the verge of dreaming, but not really. But then how do we get into that default mode network that opens up those ideas, that taps into information and solutions? And we have to catch them, when they get there.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah, and
fun.
have you discovered do you think it is a meditation? Have you discovered, is it more of like our flow state and being able to get into the flow state when we talk about the default mode network? Is it just when you have the ideas are just like they pour out of you and you're just getting them and you're writing them as fast as they come, and then, man, if you have something that knocks you off for a second, there it goes, kind of thing. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is that
right.
what you're?
Because as soon as you start really trying to think about it, I mean, and they're literally certain parts of your brain that are on where like, if you're writing, I'm trying to write this paragraph or I'm trying to figure this thing out. And then as soon as you're not paying attention, it's like when, I can't remember that word, and then go wash the dishes, and that's when the word comes to you. And so there are absolute parts of the brain that turn on and off at those times. So yeah, I'm playing with that. I might do
Yeah,
something with that to help, because like I started doing some research on theanine, the supplement theanine, L-theanine, if I'm saying it correctly, and it's and it can help turn, like basically those if you want to, I found basically a chill, it's called Chillax for children or something, and
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
gummy for relaxation, and it's not for sleep, right? It's not
yeah.
melatonin, but it is something. And I actually started looking into the research, like, can that be a trigger for the DMN? Um,
Interesting.
because as a creative person, well, and we're all creative people,
Yeah,
but
but
to be
you're
able to
really tapped in. How many books have you written now?
over a dozen, and then about probably that many more screenplays. And a few songs
Amazing.
here and there, and a bunch of stuff. So yeah.
So, what is your process to kind of get into the just any kind of writing space? How do you get started? What's your default mode, I guess, to be able to just get the stuff off the road?
Yeah, well, it does depend on what I'm writing, because some things do require outlining. Like I came out with a trilogy a year and a half ago that's this epic reincarnation mystery and love story about a famous couple from history brought back today to fulfill a prophecy, like a Da Vinci Code Outlander reincarnation story. And that one was like meticulously plotted out because I knew where it was going to end and I knew how to lay out the clues. But you're still in that time when you're the ideas are having to flow, because you just have to get into that state. And one of the things that's my thing is I have to get like, okay, here's everything I want to think about, and then I put it down, and either we'll take a nap, or I'm at the gym, and that's usually where I'm like voice recorder constantly, take this down, and try to remember, because those ideas are flowing. So it's not while I'm typing, but it's when I'm working out, is a big time for me. Or sometimes in the middle of the night, and sometimes I forget what it is, and it's like, if I don't get that voice recorder down, then I kind of can forget about it. So that's I guess
Well,
the
it's
answer.
definitely a process I think that many people embrace as far as like their notes and just talking into their iPhone notes. But for you to be able to have the body of work that you've done, you're inspired. Your inspiration comes from so many different places. I mean, I appreciate the wish kind of coming in and then being like, oh, I got to dig into the science of this. What's your background? Did you come up with, as a child, did you do a lot of writing as a kid? As far as your career goes, I mean, you're a prolific writer. You're doing so much. So, I mean, do you have other things that are taking up your time too that you can't just write every single day, or is writing your main jam?
Writing is my main jam, and then spreading the word, about the wishing thing, and doing talks and things like that about that right now. I am writing a follow-up book that's Art and Science of Wishing at Work. So it's going to be for companies going through transitions, whether it's reorganization or merger or any of that kind of stuff. So that's like another part of my personality coming out, because I've got an MBA. So I've got this corporate background and an MBA that is like, well, wait a minute, companies need this stuff, and there's a lot of money on the line if they don't make it happen, kind of thing. So I'm definitely on that. I think I might write. I have a chapter in the Art and Science of Wishing about the science of storytelling, and I think I might write that book. So I'm always got something. I always got to have to say, I got to put this idea aside while I focus on this other one. But one thing I think that came up while you were talking too, that I think is a fun thing to share with people, when you say where the ideas come from. There's my favorite Bob Dylan quote. I don't know if you've ever heard this quote, but he says, the song was there before I came around. I just got the pencil and wrote it down. Right. So what are we tapping into? What kind of energy and thought and, messaging might we be tapping into? I know Liz Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, talks about these ideas as like entities, and they'll land on the right person to get the message out. And the way I look at it, like I'm like this specialized radio that can tune into certain frequencies. It's there for everybody. I just happen to actually put the time into tuning in and writing it down. But the information's, kind of outside of me. And the wishing, I feel like when I was starting to work on this, I feel like my first book is called 5 Reasons Why Bad Things Happen. So I wrote nonfiction before I got into fiction. And it just feels like my whole life has come together to hopefully get this message out at the right time. So.
I think it's a very timely and purposeful message. And I love that you brought up the Elizabeth Gilbert, her experience with the ideas kind of landing. I did listen at one time about she had an idea for this novel. Essentially, you've probably heard the same story, but she lost it. It was there and it was gone. And she believes that it was actually transferred to another writer friend. They embraced at a meeting. And I love this concept because it helps me to kind of tap into where do ideas come from. And she said that embrace happened, and the next thing you know, some time passes, and I forget the other author's name, but they had a conversation, and she was like, "Oh, I'm working on this story," and she had it down to a like complete dot on an I as to the exact thing that Elizabeth Gilbert had planned to write. And it was literally like, and nope, there wasn't any discussion surrounding it. It was just like it transferred from Elizabeth Gilbert to this other author. And she was just like, wow. And it was like that recognition that there are ideas kind of literally floating around. And they do just land sometimes. And you have to have your antenna up. You have to have your frequency ready. And maybe even a little bit of manifesting, because your heart and your mind and your soul is looking for it. Right. You're really calling it to you to say, I'm here, I'm open. And I think it is kind of like a collective consciousness that exists. And I think the collective consciousness is, I haven't talked a lot about it on this podcast, but I'm diving in. I've been reading One Mind, and it is kind of that concept of the prayers that exist. They're all kind of floating up there. Why prayers work, likely how wishes kind of work. That there is this consciousness of energy that exists, and it's out there. And the minute that we land on something that is our heart's desire, and it's all positive, all pure, all good, it kind of matches. And the next thing you know, it's like that matching game takes place and we're gifted with the insights. And next thing you know, you're flowing and you're writing a novel and it took you 2 days or whatever, because it was just magic. It kind of magic that happened. So what's your take on the collective consciousness?
Well, what the book that I was writing that I said that I was getting into an element of wishes in this wishing realm, is called A Love Story to the Universe, and it's actually semi-autobiographical, and it's written in 4 parts. So the 4th part is the part that got into the wishing, but it's answering your question, in that I was writing this story, and I thought I'm going to write it from the point of view of the upstairs, is what I call it. So I'm writing the story, and it's like there's 2 guides and then 2 what I call traffic angels. And the traffic angels, their job is like, if this person's here and this person's here, how do they get them together? So they're working all the logistics of how do you get these. And in this particular case, it's like, how do you get an American woman living in Colorado to meet a British man in Tunisia? Like, they had to do a lot of work, and there were so many roadblocks on the way, because I thought I was going to be in Italy, and all of a sudden, no, couldn't stay in Italy. Then I went to Tunisia as a kind of an afterthought, and then all these little things happened. And so, and I wrote the book from the point of view of these guys going, what's she doing? Why isn't he doing what he wants? Why are they messing this up? What could be, could be fixed? And so, and then as I'm writing this, Laura, it's like, all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, they're telling me who they are and what they're doing. And they became very real.
Wow.
And it was this revelation for me also, in that, okay, when do you release and let them guide you? And that was a big, because I was always kind of this, I've got to decide what I want and where I'm going. And even right now, I don't know where I'm going to live, right? I'm living this kind of nomadic life. And I'm like, would you guys please tell me where I'm going? Because I don't know. And some people are like, no, come on, Brownell, you can decide, you make a plan. I'm like, I'm telling you, I have to wait for them to tell me where I'm going. It's just not, it is so hard for me. So it's a long way to answer your question about like, what is going on up there and what is that energy? And so I really do feel like, there's so many things that wouldn't have happened if that hadn't happened. And there's so many times when I feel like they're there. And I also had an experience a few months ago where I just was getting into this thing about where I was sneezing. And I was like, clear the room sneezes. And I'm like, never sneeze like that. And it wasn't like I had an allergy or anything. It's just boom, sneezes. And then all of a sudden I realized, like, I'm sneezing like my dad. And I was like, oh. And I was like, my dad's letting me know he's watching. And as soon as I realized that, I stopped sneezing.
Isn't that so funny?
It was his way of communicating. Mm-hmm. So, and some people, the scientist people, are going, okay, she's out there. But nobody can prove me wrong. And,
No.
and even if you think I'm crazy, or wrong, does it matter? If it makes me happier, if it makes me feel a deeper meaning, if it keeps me motivated to keep going, what's the harm in it? And so, it's, when I started getting into that mode and realizing what they're doing, and sometimes, like I had to get essentially kicked out of my apartment in Colorado. I had to get, and then we're meeting with immigration lawyers to try to get a visa in Italy. And all these things that were going wrong, but they were what was leading me. And then if that hadn't happened, then I would have, wouldn't have been writing this book that got me into this. So, it's like I call it reverse optimism, when you can kind of look back and go, oh, that had to happen for this to happen, for this to happen, this happened. And that was really not fun. But then I see, because somebody was pushing me down a road that I may not have wanted to go down, but making me change something.
Yeah, and I think there's so much value. A couple things here. One being that you were able to recognize that you were being guided. Call it your muses, call it the fates, call it divine intervention, whatever you want to call it. You were tapped in, and you were given enough solid evidence of proof to know that this is I got to go with this. And because the flow started, you're getting that internal satisfaction of, I'm accomplishing what I set out to do because of this. How cool is that, right? So we're giving that nod, a universal nod of, this is your path, this is what you're supposed to do. And that concept of a path, it's something, it's taken me a really long time to, I guess, grapple with the idea that our path is not necessarily predestined, but we have to trust it. We have to trust our path, because no matter what, good, bad, or ugly, it's supposed to teach us the lesson that comes from a hardship. There is a blessing on the other side of it for everybody. It could be the worst thing that you've ever experienced in your life, and you're not going to be able to see it while you're in it. And it may be years later, but you have to remember to reverse psychology it, reverse engineer it, because you deserve to have that, like, reflection. And I don't think people do that enough. Reflect back and really analyze. Don't live in the past, but analyze, why do you think this happened to put you where you are today? Because if you do that practice, you have a lot of aha moments, and you start actually seeing how often you were being guided, you were being led, and something did have to happen, or this person came into your life, or you watched this movie, or you read this book, or this song came on, and all the little signs and symbols of your path to help you to kind of articulate those pieces of your journey are so very powerful. But I think we forget that that is kind of our duty, to kind of observe our lives. You don't want to wait until it's like the end of your life and somebody's eulogizing you. You want to
Right.
be able to do it for yourself, because there's so much good in being able to see how your growth has happened and how the path is unfolded. Another piece, I think, that is something that has really taken me a while to kind of understand, is that sometimes it's not actually about us. That sometimes that conversation that we've had, or a hardship that we had, or a decision that we made that we maybe didn't feel quite right about, was for the other person. And that other person might have only been in your life for, like, you walked by them in the grocery store kind of thing. But if you hadn't gone by them at the grocery store and said something, it's the butterfly effect, right?
Right.
Something would have changed. So kind of the chaos theory. So there's so much about all of this that I think is so just, the perspective is great, and you have a really great attitude surrounding all of it, in the sense that you're really using it to guide your own life, and you're so open. And because of that, beautiful things are happening, such as all these books and your screenplays. I mean, you're contributing to so much, for everybody, and it's just pouring out of you, and it's so delightful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm
Yes,
getting ready to do a TEDx talk, as a matter of fact. So, like, that's what's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah. And that was a wish, a big wish. So,
That's amazing.
yeah.
So
And
tell me, how can we watch this? I mean, is it coming up like this year, or is it going to be
oh yeah,
pre-recorded? How does it work?
I'm
Yeah.
doing it in less than 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then, but it could take a couple of months or so before it's online. And
I
so,
can't wait to see it. This is something in the back of my mind that I've always been like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? Like a big wish. Like, it's, if you've done it, if you're able to put it out on your resume as something that you've accomplished, like, it's a cool feeling for
yeah,
sure.
it's a big, I mean, you never know you never know, right? That's where you have to release and say, I'm going to do the best job I can, and
Sure.
hopefully people will see it. But more importantly, hopefully they find meaning in it, and it's something people will do it. And so, yeah, that's, this whole idea of helping people understand the power of the science, and applying that, and making them think about things a little bit differently. My theme for my novels, or my motto for my novels, is lose yourself in the fiction, find yourself in the truth.
Hmm.
Right.
That's
And it's
awesome.
like, I just open people's minds. You don't have to believe the stuff I'm talking about in my novels. It doesn't matter. You have to believe in time travel to, like, Back to the Future. If you get people to start thinking about possibilities and thinking about the world a little bit differently, then I think that's very, a powerful, expansive thing to do.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity to really shift our society. I think there are a lot of people that just don't, they want more. They want more. And this is an opportunity for more. And it's not necessarily a monetarily, more. It could lead to that, right? But just that wholeness, that feeling of wholeness that you get of satisfaction in your life. I mean, just opening your mind to some of these things that we've talked about here today really does bring such a different level of living into our realm. I mean, when I just kind of started following this path of just, maybe it's a little bit metaphysical, but that scientific neuroscience, how it marries spirituality, how it really is all kind of contained into one aspect of life. When I started to just like embrace that, you can't get enough. You want to
Right.
read more because you're
I
you're
know.
trying to find like, oh, there's another breadcrumb. Because as soon as you open up, they just start showing up, and then you're just like, wow, and you're just become this seeker of knowledge, and it just becomes this. But it's a treasure. It's a treasure because it really does bring about this different energy in your life. It's not boring, that's for sure.
Well, and like you said at the beginning, it's about fun. I mean, like,
Yes.
because I even talk about there's science in fun and how important it is for us to have fun in it.
Yes.
And so, and that's the more you're exploring, explorers are having fun, right? They're on a path. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I really believe that your message about a wish and wishing is the next thing that we need to be able to just solidify some of the thoughts that people are having and trying to better the planet, better our society, better our communities. I think that's the missing piece, honestly. So I'm going to do my part to try to make sure I get that out for you. Um, and is that what your TEDx talk is going to be surrounded
Yeah.
on?
Art and
Yes.
science of wishing. Yeah.
So I can't wait because I will blast that out too. I will definitely share as soon as I can. And as soon as you do it, I can't wait to see it. Um, I got just a few more questions, Brownell. One of the things that I like to ask everybody is, what does standing in the light mean to you?
It means that you are being fed with the energy of the light so that you know that you're not alone and that you've got a presence and energy that's protecting you and energizing you and supporting you.
Beautiful. And that energy, man, I'm grateful for it every day for myself. And I'm grateful for having the opportunity to meet you. I feel like it's definitely brought us together.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that you'll be part of my network for a long time now. And I have a dream in the back of my mind that I'd love someday to do, kind of like a conference of sorts, but all like-minded people that come together and kind of do this, but on like a stage, and we all come and just
Oh,
enjoy
that's
music and
wonderful.
art, and just really enjoy book talks. Sit and have a opportunity to just really connect on another level. So I'm hoping that if I am managing to make that kind of festival feeling come together, that you'll join me, as a co-host, guest kind of thing.
Love it.
So stay tuned for that because I feel like I'm manifesting that in some
You're
capacity.
wishing for it.
I'm wishing for it for sure. I sure am. Um, what would you say, is the most meaningful lesson that you've learned about human desire through your work?
That there is, I mean, it's kind of repetitive, but just the fact that there is so much science behind this, that the more we understand it, then there's so much more power we have. And we can bring and there's nuances to it, right? There's four answers to a wish and all this kind of stuff. But the more we understand that, the more we can, it's not so out there, and then we can start trusting really more, because we go, okay, wait a minute, like we talked about all the things we talked about from a science standpoint, you start understanding these things like, oh, okay, that's why this is happening, this is why this is a better way, oh, okay, let's move this direction, so it's a long answer, kind
Yeah,
of a
no, it's a
rambling
perfect
answer.
answer. And the idea that when we put our trust into it and you start getting evidence of it working and you start seeing, well, 2 + 2 did equal 4 and it happened again. So it's kind of the recipe behind it, the formula behind the outcome. when you start getting that positivity in your life, when you start receiving what you were looking for. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that when you meet success, when you've put yourself out there to look for the success and it comes to you and you're like, huh, I can't even believe that just happened. Believe it, and you're going to do it again because you trust it, right? Trust is a big factor here. And I also think that as we are, learning more and you do the research as you've unpacked a lot of the science to be able to just better yourself in your story and your novel, fiction or nonfiction, it really has helped close the circle for you because you're being given the nods to say, yep, that's what you need to say next. And the next thing you know, it's a written novel, right? There's a success again. What would be one thing that you want to make sure our listeners would know before we left today?
That they're more powerful than they realize, and that it doesn't have to be woo woo. It can be something based in science, so that trust can be in something more solid. And you can go for the woo woo too if you want. There's nothing wrong
The
with
woo
that.
is
That's
kind of
the
fun,
fun.
actually.
It's also very fun. But
Mhm.
sometimes the woo woo kind of creates a trust dynamic that gets complicated. Whereas you're like, oh, that's why I'm thinking about this every day. Now I can reframe it to think about this every day. And that's a way to remind the universe this is what you want too when you repeat it. So
For sure.
yeah.
And Brownell, what's the best way that we can reach out to you, and how can we get all your books?
Okay. Well, Amazon is the easiest for my books, so they're all there. I'm the only Brownell Landrum in the world, so you can find me and Google me. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that. I've got a Facebook group called Life is a Trip that I want to invite you and everyone to. It's more for the like reincarnation and spiritual stories, but you can put wishing into that category or not. And it's just a really beautiful community. So please join us there. And, any questions or any suggestions anybody has, I love hearing from anybody. Even if you're like, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, well, then help me, help me get better knowledgeable. I'm all for that.
Well, I don't think you're crazy at all. I think this has been a beautiful conversation. I can't wait to read more of your novels. I haven't had time yet, but it's on my list now. I'm going to get my hands on some copies, and I hope that you'll allow me to reach out to you with, some suggestions and ideas for myself. I'm going to use
Absolutely.
all your lovely wisdom and your experiences to help guide my path a little bit too now that we've met. So I look
Absolutely.
forward to future connections.
Me too. Me too. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll make sure to have all the ways to contact you and links to your books and the show notes. So anybody that's interested can go ahead and click right on it. And please keep me posted about the TEDx.
Yes, will do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brownell.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful night.
Thanks.
Thank you.